Here's everything you need to do and not to do over the next 6 to 12 months to make more progress than anyone else in the gym. And if you stick to these principles long term, you'll be light years ahead of guys that are just spinning their wheels on the same routine year after year. So don't sleep on these. Now, before I give you those principles, you need to become aware of one thing, if you're not already. And that is why most people fail to achieve or accomplish their goals. It's because they do the same things over and over again that do not produce results. Sounds obvious, right? But 99% of people in the gym are doing the same thing over and over again, and they're just expecting it to work eventually. We all have guys in the gym that you see year after year doing the exact same routine, showing up at the exact same time, doing the same exercises, yet they look exactly the same. Great job on their part for the consistency, but unfortunately, if they're lacking results, the consistency is likely the only thing that you're doing right. But on the other hand, you're not looking for mediocre results. So you need to focus on all the things that produce results. With that in mind, let's first talk about what not to do. And again, this is what most people are doing that robs them of results. First is going to the gym without a plan. I hate to break it to you, but if the extent of your plan is Monday is chest day, Tuesday's back day, Wednesday's leg day, Thursday shoulder day, Friday is arm day, then you don't have a plan at all. You have a routine. Having a routine without having a plan is like driving to your destination without knowing the route. You may start off in the right direction, but without a clear map or a clear strategy, you're likely gonna get lost along the way or waste time. And that'll happen even if you keep moving forward. Now, a plan, that gives you a roadmap in order to reach your goals efficiently and effectively. And if you're going to the gym without a plan, you're not training, you're exercising at best. And no one's ever exercised their way to a massive or shredded physique. Some examples of having a routine without a plan include doing random exercises each day, basically just hopping on whatever piece of equipment's available, not tracking your sets, your reps, your intensity, lifting weights and moving them from point A to point B, but not focusing on progressively overloading. If you're doing any of this, you're easily gonna be fitting in with the guys in the gym that are gonna be in there 5 to 10 years from now, doing the same things over and over again, yet getting no results. So let's fix that right now. You're gonna have not only a routine or a split to follow, but you're gonna focus on a few key exercises per muscle group. You're gonna follow a plan of exactly how many sets you'll perform in the gym, how many reps you'll do each set, and a plan for how intense each set should be. It's not just about hitting 3 sets of 10 and moving on to the next exercise. You're gonna focus on progressive overload over time. You're gonna follow a split that's time tested to get you the fastest results possible in the shortest amount of time. That can be things like full body, upper and lower training, push-pull legs, 3, 4, or 5 day old school mass gain splits. That's exactly why I created the old school mass gain training system. It's literally a proven training system that's been utilized time and time again to get you the most amount of progress in the least amount of time possible. Whether you can train 3 days per week, 4 days per week, or 5. Again, this is not just a routine, but an entire plan, an entire system designed to get your results. The routine is just how you organize the work that you do in the gym, but it's the work within that routine that gets you the results, not the routine. Next thing you need to completely avoid that most people do is skipping training sessions simply based on emotion. If your goal is to make progress and you have a solid training plan in place, then the only time you should miss a planned training session is 1, if you have an injury preventing you from training properly, or you're risking further injury by training through it. Second is having an illness that training would further delay recovery. Yes, if you have a flu, fever, or virus, stay at home. Training is just gonna prolong your recovery and you're gonna have a poor session anyway. Stay home and don't bring that to the gym. Nobody likes getting sick. Third is if you have a life emergency, one that literally prevents you from making it to the gym. Listen, we all have real lives and the real world happens. And sometimes you just can't make it to the gym. Chalk it up as a loss, move on to the next training session, and get in the gym the next day and move on. But now, anytime you miss a session because you don't feel like it, you blame it on mild soreness, mild tiredness, lack of sleep.
It doesn't sound anything. It doesn't sound anything like me.
Stress, or any other excuse you tell yourself to justify not going to the gym to just sleep in or sit on the couch. You're setting yourself up to get results, the same results as that guy that's been in the gym for 5+ years, looking exactly the same. You need to look at training as work that needs to be done. And here's the key. You need to remove any emotion from that equation. You shouldn't rely on emotions to make decisions. You should rely only on facts. On those days that you're tired, ask yourself, can I get a productive training session in? In most cases, if the answer is yes, then get that session in, and that's another session moving you towards your goal. Remember, building muscle is a cumulative effect that occurs over time. While most people just think of it as a one-off session, i.e., I went to the gym today and I trained chest, I tore down the muscle, and now it's gonna regrow bigger and stronger. Muscle growth is actually the occurrence of muscle protein synthesis being consistently elevated over time, and fueling that process through proper nutrition and proper rest. So if you just decide to take days off whenever you feel like it, you're likely gonna get lapped by the guy who executes the plan over and over again consistently without fail. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have your set days that you train. Outside of the real reasons to skip the gym, you're going to hit your training session, and you're gonna do it without emotion. If you don't feel like training that day, who cares? Get that session in and then go about the rest of your day. Remember, it doesn't matter if the session is perfect every time. Consistency trumps perfection every time. The third thing that's also probably the biggest offender of the no results crew is simply trying to reinvent the wheel. I've said it over and over again. What worked 50 years ago in bodybuilding works just as well today. And if we look at some of the best physiques in a time period where guys really only had barbells and dumbbells, the guys in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the pumping iron era, not only did these guys have massive and impressive physiques with minimal knowledge on training, nutrition, or anything related to building muscle, they arguably even had better physiques than guys do today, of course depending on your preference. But what you cannot argue is they got extremely impressive results with just the basics. I'm all for learning science of training, and a lot of my training is actually backed by solid foundational principles in science because they work. But where guys take this too far is trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm talking about lengthened partials, stretch mediated hypertrophy, massive high volume with little to no effort, or extremely low volume, trying to avoid any time or effort in the gym. Any of these extremes to try to get around the tried and true basics is simply creative avoidance. And there's a reason why guys that are so wrapped up in the science of training and all the new trends, again, look the same year after year. I promise you, the guy that's working behind the scenes in quiet, following the tried and true basics that work, he's building way more muscle than the guys trying to reinvent the wheel, and at a faster rate. Go to any gym. Find the guys making the most progress. Talk to any competitive bodybuilder at the top of their game. And I promise you, he's not gonna tell you he built his physique because of a new trend or a new study that popped up in the last 6 months. One that's gonna be debunked and put on the shelf next year. These guys are executing the basics for long periods of time. Next thing is a huge mistake is making decisions based on preference and not based on need. This includes picking exercises that personally feel good, not because you need it for your goals. This is doing things like avoiding harder movements for easier alternatives, even if that means lesser results. This also means training with a volume or frequency that you personally prefer, rather than what's needed to actually get the results. For a long time, I personally heavily focused on arm training. When I first started training, my arms were just under 12 inches fully flexed, so plenty of room for growth. I naturally hammered them and prioritized them a bit more than some other body parts, like most people do. I mean, who doesn't want bigger arms? And over the years and years of training them, I developed them into my best body part. My arms are over 19 inches at single-digit body fat and about 190 pounds of body weight. I have plans to return to the bodybuilding stage this year, and because of my needs to be competitive, adding more size to my arms is nowhere near as important as adding more muscle to other body parts on my physique. So for me, arm training, despite the fact that I personally enjoy doing it, is now being trained at the least volume and frequency that I ever have before. Currently, I'm training arms just once per week with 6 to 8 working sets for biceps and triceps. I'm freeing up that time to hammer my other body parts that need more work, my hamstrings, my lower back, and my entire posterior chain. My goal is to bring everything into proportion. Now, my preference is not training these muscles. I don't particularly find it fun to train hamstrings. I love getting a massive arm pump, but again, I'm not training based on preference, I'm training based on need. Most guys that don't get great results are doing the exact opposite. Training should be fun. Bodybuilding should be fun. I love everything about bodybuilding. But you know what I love even more than enjoying my training? Getting the results that I want from my training. So take a long look at your physique in the mirror. Ask yourself, what do I actually need to focus on? Most likely, you probably just need more muscle everywhere. And if that is the case, you probably shouldn't be training your most favorite body parts more often with more intensity or more volume than your least favorite body parts. Probably should be training your entire body frequently and developing it as a whole, rather than focusing on individual body parts. But regardless regardless of what your goals and your needs are, your training should reflect the results and the work that you need to do, not what you prefer doing. If your entire posterior chain needs work, you probably should be hammering those RDLs, those stiff leg deadlifts, those deadlifts, and any hip hinges. Doing a couple sets on the back extension machine, that's probably not gonna cut it. If you need massive upper pecs and more front delt work, you probably should be hammering those incline barbell and dumbbell presses, instead of messing around with that cable machine that you saw the optimal guy doing on Instagram. Next problem is actually the opposite of the guy that skips the gym based on emotion, and that is the guy skipping rest days. Rest days are part of the plan. I'll repeat that again because it's so important. Rest days are part of the plan. If you're training with something like, let's say, my 5-day old school mass gain training system, those 2 rest days are placed in the program so that you can recover from those 5 training sessions and train productively week after week. If you skip those 2 rest days because you think you're gonna get ahead of the guys taking rest days, you're gonna be pleasantly unsurprised when you find that the guys taking those rest days are actually progressing faster than you. Yes, rest days are key for growth when they're planned appropriately. If I could get better results, faster results by training 7 days per week, I would. If I could get faster results training 14 times per week, I would. I would be training right now during the video if it made a difference. But the fact is, if you're training hard enough, training with proper volume, frequency, and intensity, you're gonna need rest days to recover from your training and to grow. So if you have a solid plan in place, that's first and foremost. Do not deviate from the rest days. Now, if you're so hardcore that you wanna train on the rest days, ask yourself, would you skip a planned training session? If the answer is no, then why would you skip a rest day? They're literally part of the plan. Next is not tracking your nutrition. Now, I could say that not following a proper diet in general is the culprit here for not making progress. But the truth is, most guys have a pretty solid or somewhat decent nutrition approach, but they still don't get the results they want. I can't tell you how many guys are eating plenty of protein, eating plenty of calories, yet for some reason just can't gain weight. I can't tell you how many guys are eating super clean, getting plenty of protein in, but they just can't drop body fat. And every time I get asked questions about diet from guys who are putting in the work, but very frustrated with their results, I'll ask them the same basic question. And 9 times out of 10, I'll get the same answer. Are you tracking your nutrition? No, not tracking your nutrition is like trying to save 10 grand next month, but you have no idea how much money's going in and no idea how much money's going out. Your plan is just simply not to waste money, and hopefully it all adds up. Now, obviously, that's not gonna cut it. So similarly, if you're trying to gain half a pound per week in a lean gaining phase, or drop 1 to 2 pounds weekly in a fat loss phase, the most reliable and predictable way to get there is to track your macros and determine how many calories are coming in and going out on a daily basis. Doing this can predictably push your weight up or drop it down based on your goals. And you can do it as fast as you want to. If I just tell myself I'm gonna eat clean and try to restrict calories during a diet phase, I can easily lie to myself and just overeat some clean foods. If I'm bulking, I can easily lie to myself and just say I'm extremely full and I ate a ton of food today. But the fact is, in both cases, I'd simply be lying to myself. And data doesn't lie. And if you actually want to get results in your nutrition approach, just eating clean, restricting yourself in a diet phase, or eating more during a gaining phase, that isn't gonna cut it. You might get some results for a few weeks, then you're gonna stall hard and you're gonna get frustrated. So don't be that guy. Take your nutrition seriously, track your macros and your calories according to your goals. I've been tracking my nutrition since before iPhones even existed. Before there were any apps, I literally had a pen, paper, scale, and calculator on my kitchen counter. I'm not saying to become OCD with it, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but people see the results in my mass gain phases, they see the results during my cutting phases, and they wanna know, how do I get those results? I don't do anything magical. I simply do the same habit that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. Track my nutrition, and I adjust it based on my goals at that time. Do that, and I promise you'll be light years ahead of anyone in the gym. Next is not having full trust in the process. Most guys are program hopping. Talk to these guys that, again, look the same year after year in the gym. Last month they were doing PPL, this month they're doing a bro split. A year ago they were powerlifting. I'm all for keeping training interesting, but the fact that these guys jump their training around so often, and guys who change the training method every time a new study comes out, those are great examples of guys who don't get the results they want. And that is because they're not fully bought into the plan. They don't truly believe that what they're currently doing will get them results. So they get shiny object syndrome, and the next new idea that comes out, they jump all over it, openly abandoning whatever they've been doing for the last few months or even a few years, which potentially has been working. As a result, again, spinning their wheels more, getting no results. The truth is, even if a plan is only an 8 out of a 10 in terms of productivity, if it's executed executed as a 10 out of 10 in terms of intensity and consistency, it will produce results that'll blow past anyone that's running a quote-unquote optimal plan, if they're executing it with less intensity and consistency, of course. The guys that I know that get the best results, and I'm talking about guys at the top of competitive sports, both natural and enhanced bodybuilding, they all have a system of training that they're fully bought into, one that they fully trust the process, and one that they execute with 100% consistency and intensity. And most people don't see that. They see the results these guys are getting and want to know what training plan do they follow, thinking that the plan itself is the reason that these guys get results. And a solid plan is obviously very important, as I mentioned, but what you're overlooking here is the level of faith that these guys have in that plan. I always like to use this example. If I was a young teenager and prime Arnold Schwarzenegger said he wanted to take me under his wing, he said, I'm going to train with you every session. I'm going to give you all the secrets and I'm going to guide you every single step of the way. How hard do you think that I would execute that plan? I don't know about you, but me, 14-year-old me, would be living and dying by every word he gave me. I was 14, things are a little bit different now, but you know what? The results that would come from that, they wouldn't be because of Arnold's secrets. They would come from the intensity, consistency, and the level of belief that I put into the training and those systems. And if you're operating at that level of intensity, you're not gonna have a problem making progress in the gym. And the last thing I wanna touch on here before I close this out is, in fact, consistency. All of these principles will get you more results. They'll get you faster results and they'll completely transform your physique over time. But none of this happens without consistency. Train your mind not to think in days or weeks, but rather in months or years. At this stage in the game for me, 21 plus years deep, I don't look at any type of results inside of a 6-month period. While I do have goals to accomplish on a daily and weekly basis, those are just habits for me to follow. And when I'm tracking progress or setting goals, they're all long-term goals because real results take time. So get yourself a solid plan if you don't already have one. Get my old school mass gain system. Follow it to a T and you won't be disappointed. Don't skip sessions because you feel like it. Don't do anything or not based on emotion. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There were guys in your situation 50 years ago with limited access to equipment, access to limited information, who built physiques even more impressive than the standards you set for yourself today. And they did it by executing the basics. You don't need anything fancy. Train based on your needs. Don't avoid exercises because you don't like them. Pick movements and train in a manner based on your needs, not what you prefer doing. Don't skip rest days. Rest days are part of the plan. If you wouldn't skip a productive training session, don't skip a rest day that was designed for recovery and progression. Rest days are also growth days. Track your nutrition, eat your protein, eat clean, restricting your calories or increasing them if needed. They're all good starting points, but they won't cut it if you're serious about your results. Do the work that needs to be done and get the results that you want. Trust the process, follow the plan, execute it with 100% level of intensity, effort, and consistency. The perfect plan is the one that you follow through with 100%. Master progression in the gym. Train your mind to always think in terms of progress. Training is not about mindlessly going through the motions. Remember, progression over everything else. And remember, consistency. Whatever you do it right for a long period of time. Consistency matched with the right plan works every time. Now, get to work and start executing on your plan. And if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.